Now I told y'all that I was like, gonna like, see what's up or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Bro, and I did. And I'm glad I like, actually like, did like, watch the like, entire video or whatever, you know what I mean? Bro, anyway, now these cops, like, actually like trying to stop this running from our pants because like and like was in the middle of investigation of a robbery, but they didn't have no concentrate, but nothing like that. Bro, so he asked them all for their name and badge number. You know what I'm saying? And they out there trying to mess with him, playing these mind games and stuff, saying like this and that and this or whatever, whatnot. And they couldn't even like mess with Brody or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? For real though. Anyway, yeah. Shoot, he died like they thought they were outsmarting him, but he outsmarted them. For real though, because like why? I mean like he knew his rights and all that stuff, and then he asked for the like supervisor and all that. For real though. I mean shoot, that's like when like they like stop messing with him or whatever, whatnot, you know what I mean? I don't know. Even the supervisor was just trying to play mind games with him and all that stuff. That stuff didn't work either. Yeah, I mean like that stuff crazy as ever, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, after like words, he like left the spot or whatever, whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Because like Scouts was on the bull and he like exposed that. Real and that's on bro. Anyway, so yeah, the like cops in like Mississippi and Goodman or whatever when you know what I'm saying, they resigned. They resigned for real because why like when I like when I do got elected to be mayor who was black or whatever when you know what I'm saying, they didn't like actually wanted to like stay over there or whatever when you know what I'm saying, for real though. And like the young ones is out there like you know what I'm saying, making fun of them, you know what I'm saying, just enjoying it or whatever when you know what I'm saying, knocking on the door, taunting and all this stuff, you know what I'm saying. Even one of them got on a car, pulled out the blade or whatever. That's some crazy stuff, but hey, they enjoying themselves in that song, bro. Anyway, now this like cops like messing with this dude up in Tennessee, right? Because his neighbor like what I'm saying, and him had a like dispute over like the property or whatever whatnot, because like they own property or whatever, like one owned property and the other one owned property, but they end up like I think one of them end up like going on to the other one's property or whatever, and they like had an argument about it. That thing like the dude like took out a blade, started shooting in the air, did 3 shots. The neighbor called the like police or whatever whatnot. Not saying dude wasn't hurting nobody. Dude didn't even point the blade at nobody. You know what I'm saying? So why was he being arrested or whatever whatnot? And like it's just like actually got in the way of him like making money and all this stuff for him and his family, and that was crazy as ever, and that's on bro. Anyway, now this like dude was like driving his car 2 days or whatsoever and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And like he was like driving it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And the cop like actually like was trying to stop him or whatever whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And like dude just started speeding away or whatever. You know what I'm saying? He finally stopped or whatever, but he stopped in the middle of the road or whatever whatnot, you know what I mean? Random. Anyway, so yeah, shoot, when he like actually like started talking to the officer or whatever whatnot, he said like the wrong thing, you know what I'm saying? And he did something that could actually get him put in jail. For real, because like he actually like gave him a like ID like, idea from a department that he don't work at no more, or whatever, whatnot. And he said he was, like, working at, like, another department that he was supposed to start on the other day, or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? For real. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, like, shoot, when dude, like, ran that up and called, like, the departments or whatever, whatnot, he was in trouble. I mean, I'm telling you, he was in trouble, gang. You know what I'm saying? He had his son in this, like, car with him or whatever, whatnot, so they got his family out there. You know what I'm saying? So he could get his son or whatever, whatnot. Well, so the mother could get the son or whatever. His pops, like, went out there so he could get the car because they didn't want to impound his car or nothing like that. But he, like, actually went to jail for impersonating an officer because he didn't, like, start that job yet that he said he was gonna get. And that's on bro. Anyway, so this cop actually, like, started tasing his cadets. For real though. I mean, like, shoot, he like, tortured all 6 of them. Just, like, tasered them or whatever. And the one that he didn't tase, he, like, started, like, harassing them or whatever, whatnot. You know what I mean? For real though. It was crazy as ever. You know what I'm saying? The, like, judge gave him an option. She was like, why don't you stay like 30 days in jail or whatever, or if you don't, then this gonna be on your, like, record. So he didn't want to, like, actually go through with the 30 days in jail. Why? Because, yeah, those cadets, you don't want them to get revenge. You don't want them to get revenge. That's why he was like, nah, no. I just paid the fee and all that, like, no. No. Yeah, but, yeah, he still did some jail time, though. You know what I'm saying? No. Because, like, yeah, I mean, like, he wasn't gonna get out of it or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Right. That was, like, crazy as ever. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, he tried to, like, escape, like, get out of trouble, but he ended up getting in trouble because he, like, chased, like, multiple, like, cadets. But the thing is, they dropped the charges against him for that. The thing is that he went to jail for is because he lied about it. That's the thing. You know what I'm saying? He lied about it. He said he was trying to make up a story like it wasn't, like, a big deal or a big thing or, you know what I'm saying? And then, like, it never even happened. Like I'm saying, he said he got tased before, but he never, like, explained who tased him. You know what I'm saying? And that's on bro. Anyway. So this man, like, actually went into this, like, place or whatever, whatnot. And he was recording or whatever. And, like, I don't know, the lady that worked there actually, like, got bothered by it or whatever, whatnot. But, yeah, she called the cops and all that, you know what I'm saying? Cops couldn't do nothing about it or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, so, telling you, it's just like they just was wasting their dang old time being there or whatever because nothing, like, bad was happening. It was just recording. You know what I'm saying? And he, like, exercised his, like, immune rights or whatever, whatnot. You know what I mean? Real. Anyway, so yeah, they, like, actually was talking, had a conversation whatsoever, whatnot. It didn't get iffy or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? And, like, they just left out, like, building or whatever. Just left him alone, and that's on bro. Anyway, so this, like, woman, like, actually, like, did, like, just went into this area and started taking pictures or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a parking lot of a church or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And, like, I think the police, like, started going after him because he looked suspicious or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And, like, they couldn't detain him because He wasn't doing a crime or nothing like that. He was just taking pictures or whatever or whatnot. But they said like, they told him not to go back to that property or whatever whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Or it would be some consequences that he have to like deal with or whatever whatnot, you know what I'm saying? For real though. Even that like, pastor of the church, like, didn't want him on the property or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? He said he could just like come there and for church and that's about it. You know what I'm saying? And next thing you know, he just like, left. Just left out. Like, you know what I'm saying? But before he left, he asked him for their name and badge number. That's it. Bro though. And that's on bro. But anyway, like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hit the bell on notifications so you see my last upload and my last post. And I make sure I make another one tomorrow. And oh yeah, you can check out my previous videos if you like it. So long, farewell, goodbye.